welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
And today we are talking about the history of the haunted house.
Ooh. I'm excited.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think of what a fun topic for our first episode of the new year would be. And I just got curious about haunted houses and I wanted to know a little bit more about them and where they came from.
I'm so ready. This is one of my favorite little spooky niches. So I'm hyped.
So most of my information for this episode came from a really great Smithsonian Magazine article called The History of the Haunted House. So highly recommend checking that out if you want to read for more updates. But they talked about how obviously, all the way back in ancient times, there's been history of scary theatrical experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's stuff from that. But they really talked about how Madame Tussauds was kind of a start of that sort of idea of a creepy attraction.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, so in 1802 is when Marie Tussauds first displayed an exhibition of wax sculptures of decapitated French figures.
I don't think I realized that was the start of Madame Tussauds.
Yeah. So she made death masks of guillotined people was her thing.
That's incredible. I truly had no idea.
Yeah, and so the first permanent exhibition in London was called the Chamber of Horrors, and I think they do still have a portion of the museum today that's called the Chamber of Horrors, although obviously it's moved into a much more celeb friendly kind of setup.
I am literally sitting here mouth agape that I did not know this. And that is so wild.
Yes, all very, very gory and spooky. And so they're talking about then, obviously, that's a spooky thing. And that kind of got the public interested in this sort of idea of a gruesome horror attraction. They also talked about spooky theater, and I don't actually know how to say this. I was going to look it up before I started it. But the Grand Guignol Theater in Paris.
Oh.
Which I've read I've read the words a million times, and I'm just now realizing that I don't know how to say it. So sorry about that. So this is actually something. So they're notorious for on stage incredibly graphic stuff. This is what if anyone has seen the film Interview with the Vampire, this is what the Vampire Theater was inspired by and based on.
That's awesome. Are they the? I know there's. I actually didn't know the name of it. I know there's a kind of a chain of theaters that specialize in theater of the grotesque,
Mm-hmm.
Doing things to purposely make you very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely that vibe. Apparently, according to this article, the theater director famously boasted he judged the success of the performance on the number of people who passed out in the audience.
Oh boy, yeah.
The shock. But it was in 1915 at an English fairground that we had the first commercial horror attraction, and it is the Orton and Spooner Ghost House.
Ghost house.
Yeah, so I saw pictures of it. It's actually really cute. It was a little small cottage, but it was steam powered, and the floors and walls would shake, and there would be gusts of air.
It's kind of like the we have a place at in Kansas City, Worlds of Fun, our amusement park, has a little house that is like that it just kind of everything's a little lopsidedy, and then it'll blow stuff at you, and but it's definitely kid friendly.
Yeah, and this was also relatively mild, but it was ooh, a spooky experience. But haunted houses came to America when Halloween kind of rose to prominence during the Great Depression, and they're talking about how haunted houses were very similar to trick or treat in that it was ways that people were trying to find things to occupy youths with instead of doing pranks on Halloween.
Which is interesting though, right? Because it's still kind of the same thing. It's
It
controlled
is.
pranking.
Right? I know. As I was reading this, they were like property damage, vandalism, harassment of strangers, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like teens.
Yeah, yeah.
Teens through the ages, they still like that. During the Great Depression, families would set up like little house to house trails of terror and set up like little spooky experiences in their basements.
Oh, I've
And
always
you,
wanted to go to like there was this house when I was younger that did like a trail through the woods in the back of their house.
yeah,
And I've always wanted to like have that experience in my home some way for kids. I think that's so fun.
yeah, I have never really experienced that in real life, but I remember I was watching a Netflix documentary about haunts and haunted attractions, and they had
Oh,
like,
I watched that
yeah,
one.
they had the segments about like the home haunts, and I thought that was super interesting.
Yes, I watched that with Taylor a couple of years ago, I think, and oh my gosh, that is so fascinating. People who are really into like turning their homes into a haunted house. So cool.
Yeah, and it turns out that it is very true to the roots of Halloween in America.
Good on them. Good job.
Yes. But the haunted house, like as a commercial entity or something that, isn't just like something a family would do or like a carnival thing, was actually traced back to the Haunted Mansion. My
Really?
fave. Yes.
I was wondering if it had specifically to do with that.
Yeah, they were. Obviously, as we covered in our Haunted Mansion episode, go back and listen to that if you want a full breakdown. But the Haunted Mansion opened in 1969, and it really kind of revolutionized things by using these, intricate illusions and things like that. So it wasn't just like, oh, there's like someone in like a rubber mask here being like, rah. There were like kind of a real immersive experience.
Tricks of the eye.
Yes. And so that is kind of credited as being the start of like the industry of haunted attractions. And it was around this time that the JCs, the U.S. Junior Chamber, haunted houses was like their big fundraiser.
You're from the Midwest.
I am.
Did you ever go to those like church haunted houses that were fundraisers?
Oh my God, I did not, but the next fact on my list was 1972 was one of the first hell houses, the
Oh my god.
anti-Halloween attraction. I have never been. I've like certainly heard a lot of stories, but I have never been to one personally.
Oh, you bet your sweet boopy I have. Give us do you have some facts about the Hell House birth before I get into this?
Just that it was introduced by Jerry Falwell at Liberty University, so hotbed of evangelical kind of
Incredible.
sentiment. But feel free to school us about hell houses.
Oh man. I mean, I first of all just want to say, like, I'm not here to dog on religion at all, but churches putting on haunted houses shouldn't happen ever. It shouldn't be allowed. And yeah, it's always like so we went to this like little church Halloween thing when I was 3 or 4 years old, and this was advertised as like a family friendly haunted house. I swear on a stack of Bibles that is the reason I was so scarred for like all things Halloween for so long, like why I was scared of animatronics, why I was scared of like it was so horrifying. And of course, it's all like sins. It's not like
yes.
It's
not like werewolves.
Like, no, it's like, oh, so and so thought it would be cool to try a marijuana cigarette. Yeah, oh my god. And they would spatter you like spatter you with blood. I was 4. Hello,
Yeah,
church. They are not messing around in the hell houses. It was, oh my god, wild.
Not a hell house, but a like fundraising haunted house was my experience of like working with a haunted house in high school.
Oh, did you work at one?
I volunteered because I was in Leo Club, which was like the kid version of the Lions Club.
Okay.
which I don't know if people have these in not the Midwest, but it's like,
I don't
if
think so. I
there's,
think it's pretty Midwestern.
it's basically like a club for a bunch of dudes to hang out and do stuff. And there's like business networking. But there's usually like a women's version and like sometimes a youth version. And so I was in that.
It's kind of
Um,
like a Rotary Club, I think. Like a
yeah.
lot of places, I think, call them Rotary
Yeah.
or
It's like
something.
a social / charitable organization.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of volunteering, and we partnered up with it was someone, I think it was on behalf of United Way. There was like another group that was putting on a haunted house, and so we were volunteering our time for it. And I just even remember like I was being walked through this haunted house that was being constructed like in a community center. And I was like, this is scary. I don't like this.
It's not even in action yet, and you're already like, no,
No.
thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I'm too like on edge with this that I don't even want to be in the haunted house. So I ended up volunteering to work the concession stand. So I just sat in the lobby and like sold bags of M&Ms to people the whole night.
This disproves my theory, because I always wondered if like like scare actors are a very like hot commodity, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's really, I feel like there's a real art to being a scare actor too. I always thought like with my acting training, I was like, maybe I'll go work in a haunted house and that will remedy my fears, like maybe it'll help me when I see it from the backside, like I'll be less scared. But
Yeah, I mean it
apparently not.
could. I was just like I like pictured like being left alone in one of these like spooky rooms to wait for like the next group of people to come in
Yeah.
to jump out, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, like, can I be on my phone? Can I have a nightlight?
Right. It was too spooky for me.
3 spooky, 5 me. Yeah.
Yes.
I've only, have you been to like one of the commercial haunted houses?
Okay, so I wasn't sure if I was going to save this for the end or put it in now, but I will go for it. So I have 2 life experiences with haunted houses.
Okay.
One being when I was a kid, I would say probably under 10. I'm not sure. My family was at some kind of harvest fair, and they had a haunted barn, and I decided that I wanted to go in the haunted barn.
You were feeling brave.
Yes, I was going to say, if anyone has listened to the Haunted Mansion episode where this exact same thing happened, my parents were like, I don't think you do want to go in the haunted barn. And I was like, nope, I definitely do. And my dad and I waited in this big line to go into this haunted barn. And
How old are you at this point?
Probably like 10.
Okay.
10 or 12, maybe. I don't know. I was like young, but like
but
old
older
enough that I should have known, not that I didn't want to do this.
Old enough that the boundary maybe should have been set for yourself.
Yes. But the first room that you went into, it was like a plexiglass window, like a zoo enclosure almost.
Okay.
And there was water, and it was like a swamp scene. And I went right up there and pressed my face against the glass. And of course, a horrifying swamp monster jumped out and scared me, and I just completely lost my shit, and my dad had to carry me crying through the rest of the haunted barn to get outside. I don't know anything else that happened in there.
I was gonna say they probably didn't have like the haunted mansion where they have the like, you're a yellow bellied, like get out exit.
We had to go straight through, and I did attempt again to go to a haunted house with my Girl Scout troop, because
it's always the Girl Scouts.
Because all the Girl Scout troop was going, and I wanted to be part of everything. And we were like waiting outside, and I was getting more and more nervous. And we like went into the first room that had like black light, like neon graffiti everywhere, and there was whoever the creepy character that was just like, welcome to this haunted house. And as we were walking in, I was just like, nope, I'm scared. And I just like grabbed onto one of the chaperone's arms and like hid my face in her shoulder and walked out with her. And then we got outside, and I was like, oh my God, we're safe. And a giant stilts monster man came out from like behind
There's
something.
Always
like
one outside.
And I have not been into a haunted house since then.
If I've learned one thing, it's that there's always one outside. Like,
Right.
wait, as soon as you think you're done, you're absolutely not done.
Yep. So those are my haunted house experiences.
So you've not really fully experienced
No,
one then.
not really. What about you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, somewhat. Here's the thing, right? For me, it's like a roller coaster. Like,
Hmm.
waiting to get on, I'm like, God, no. God, no. Oh, God, no. And then the minute I'm in it, I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
But I can almost never work myself up to the point of wanting
Hmm.
to go in. I did go. So Kansas City actually has a lot of haunted houses. We have this whole area downtown called the West Bottoms. That's like basically a vacant warehouse graveyard,
Ooh.
where all the old like cattle yards and everything used to be back in the day. And there's just vacant, really creepy old buildings everywhere.
Hmm.
And they've turned a lot of them into haunted houses. So we've got like the Beast and the Edge of Hell are like our big ones. I went in high school with some friends, and the reason they got me to go is because there is one called the Chambers of Poe
Ooh.
here. Um, and it's like every room is a different Poe poem.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was actually quite cool. I did have a panic attack right before going in. And you climb these really tall stairs. This is one of my favorite like little stories of anything that ever happened to me. The image is hilarious in my brain. We climb this giant tall dark staircase. We get to the top and there's this like middle-aged man in a huge raven costume. And he can tell like I am not okay. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm like a grown person. Like I'm 17 or 18 at this point. But I'm having a full-blown come apart. And he like reaches into his little like wing sack. I don't know. Like he had like a little secret pocket
Hmm.
and pulls out what I'm sure like is for children, little glow sticks.
Oh.
And like cracks them and like puts them around my wrists. He's like, it's gonna be okay. And so that was a very tender moment I had with a raven.
That was a very nice raven.
Right before I had the shit scared out of me. But it actually was very cool. Like that, the premise of that with a literature spin, it can be fun, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of why like I kind of want to try one again because I do feel like I am significantly braver than I used to be and like I do a lot better with like scary movies
Mm-hmm.
these days and stuff, and there are like so many like haunted attractions that have really cool premises. Like I can't usually watch any videos because I get extremely motion sick, so
Mm.
unrelated to the hauntings, but like all of like the different like Halloween Horror Nights
I
mazes
was
and
gonna
stuff,
ask. Yep.
like the concepts are really cool and I'm like, "Oh, I bet I would really like that," or it's Stranger Things or something like that, and
I
I think
would
I would
love to
appreciate it.
go. Yeah, I would love to go to HHN, but I'd be worried that like the minute I got there, I wouldn't be able to handle
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And then you've spent all this money. I did go to, again, Worlds of Fun. I feel like I'm giving them free publicity today. They do a Halloween haunt, so that's our local amusement park, and I did go to that 2 years ago or three, pre-COVID, Halloween
Mhm.
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I did not go through any of the mazes, but I was proud of myself that I was able to like walk through the park even because they have people like running
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
you, and they have people that like have like metal things on their elbows, so they like slide and it makes like sparks and things.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, cuz is Worlds of Fun a Six Flags?
No, but
Oh,
yes,
okay. Yeah.
it's owned by like Cedar Rapids, so
Okay.
it's a different branch, but I mean same difference basically.
Yeah, because we have
It's
Six
less
Flags Great
nice.
America up here. And like it's the same thing where like I've been invited a lot of times to like go to
Hmm.
their like Halloween like thing at the park, and I'm just like, I don't want people to jump out and follow me. And
Right. Well, and it's different. Like I mean, like you said, like I've gotten so much better with horror films and things, but there's something very different. Even though like in my brain I know that the threat is not real.
yeah.
My fight or flight is very active.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm either gonna have a full like drop to the ground scream crying, or I'm gonna hit, which is more likely. I have a very quick trigger finger with a punch when I get scared, and I don't trust myself in that situation.
Right. Oh man. It can be really scary. And oh, speaking of like the kind of movie industry and film prospects, they do also talk in this article that like slasher movies were then also like a huge boom feeding
Sure.
into haunted houses. So
I
they
honestly
got
thought that's what you were going to say
Mhm.
was like the 80s was probably when they got prominent, because I feel like that's when horror really took off.
Yeah, they were saying that's really when like the professional haunted houses
Mm.
really started to build. But then also a reason I was thinking of Six Flags. There was a fire at a Six Flags in a haunted house in New Jersey,
Oh no.
where in 1984, where eight teenagers died, and so tons of stuff were set down. There were a lot more safety regulations put into place, which is good, but that is also really kind of run down a lot of like the volunteer haunted houses
And
because
now that's a real haunted house because
yep,
those
right. I'm like,
the
oh,
ghosts
it's
of 8 teenagers are haunting that land now. That's
yeah, and
scary.
but yeah, and so that really like changed the industry and kind of took focus away from like those kind of like DIY volunteer based haunted houses, and it is a much more of a professional industry today.
I wonder if haunters have to get, I'm sure they do have to get some kind of like permit and things to do that uh in their homes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure they're supposed to. It's probably
Sure.
one of those things that a lot of people don't pay a lot of close attention to, but yeah. And then this was not part of the article. This was just my own thought. But I mean, these days can't help but think of, things like McCamey Manor and
Mhm.
these like super immersive like horror experiences
Yeah.
that and I mean, I'm sure absolutely no one listening to this podcast is shocked that I have zero interest in anything like that. I feel like it's interesting that, is kind of the next phase of the haunted house, this kind of like even more immersive horror experience.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad you are kind of taking it this direction, because this was going to be something I wanted to discuss. Just
Yeah.
like, why do people want to be scared so bad?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know, I mean, there are literal places now where you can like sign a waiver to basically be like stripped naked and
Mhm.
thrown in a van and
Yeah.
driven out to the middle of nowhere. It's like, why would you want to do that? what what thrill seeking like
Right.
gene
Yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
have? I did. And
I
ooh,
guess it's
no.
I guess it's the adrenaline. Like, I mean, the same as like skydiving or bungee jumping or any of these kind of like controlled death defying
Yeah,
experiences like that people really want to like feel a primal. I guess I could see feeling like you'd sort of conquered something if you like
sure.
faced like a really, primal terror and like made it through. I mean, I feel like the the payoff is not worth the like experience that you go through.
No. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Y'all must have a lot more control over your nervous system than I do,
Right.
because I would be, even in a fake situation like that, I would be in panic and shock for weeks. Like,
Yeah.
I would not, I would not want to, yeah, like you said, no participation for me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It was really interesting. Did you watch the Dark Tourism series that was on Netflix?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah. So there is an episode where he goes to McCamey Manor, which I know is also kind of just generally controversial in all of those things. But so like the host goes to it and he's like there with another guy who just has like signed up and is like, I want to do this. And he is that kind of guy where he's like, I've gone skydiving, I've gone cliff jumping, I've done this and this and this. And like this is like my next level of like seeking that
Adrenaline
thrill.
junkie.
And yeah, and it was really interesting to just kind of see like the level of stuff they do, and also I'm not sure. I know that I think after this show, like they had moved because of like the state kind of being like, we don't think we're gonna let you do this
Yeah.
anymore. But like the guy even had like, you know, like random teens from the neighborhood like involved in like waterboarding people and stuff like that. And I'm just like, this is such a
Jeez.
weird situation. And I guess I don't think that something like that would ever replace the traditional haunted house, just because I think it is such a small subset of people who really want that next level of
Right.
scariness.
Well, and I
But
mean, I guess, I
yeah,
don't know. I guess it depends on where you draw your boxes. But like, to me, that, especially like talking about like McCamey Manor and things, like that's like it gets too real. Like, it does
yeah,
that, like, I mean, to me, like the fun aspect of like a commercial haunted house is that most of the time they are like, even though they're scary, there is like a goofy level of like camp with it, of like, this would never happen, you
yeah,
know. Like, or hopefully, like I'm never going to be in a situation, knock on wood, where there's a bunch of like circus clowns chasing me.
yes,
But yeah, stuff like that where you're dipping into like torture and really scary like body horror type, like that, too real. We're dealing with too much in our society right now. We
right.
don't need
Ugh.
I don't need an extra level of horror,
Ugh.
well, that already exists. Like, no thank you.
Yeah, very very spooky, and not something for me. But yeah, it was interesting to like look back, and I was kind of interested by how many articles about like the history of haunted houses were like, well, the ancient Greeks did like scary plays, and I'm like, that's not really the same thing though. Like,
It is, like, it's interesting though, like it is theater in a
oh
sense,
yeah, it
like
definitely is. But I was just kind of like, that's why I'm like, I wanted to know like the distinct, like this is a place that I go and I pay someone for like this kind of like full
full
experience.
experience.
Like we also have like scary plays now.
I wonder if other countries have haunted houses, or is this because I know they don't like do up Halloween the way we do.
Yeah, I don't know actually. I didn't see a whole lot about international haunted houses. So
It
sound
seems
off,
like a very
folks.
American, like weird. Americans are so weird.
It's true. It's true.
Like, are we all so privileged that we need to pay to feel something bad? What, what's going on, y'all? Take your meds. I don't.
I know. I saw something else that was just like interesting how we have to make fake busted up houses. Like there's not enough busted up houses
Yeah,
in
go
the
buy
world,
out.
and but we're going to make a house look scary so that you can go in it and be like, "Wow, scary."
Ooh, spoopy. Yeah. I will say I have one other kind of cool, the only kind of other haunted attraction thing I've done.
Yeah.
So my husband and I are in a Jeep club. My husband has like an off-roading Jeep, and we went to, again, pre-COVID, our club used to do this thing called creepy crawl. And everybody like decorates their Jeeps spooky and everything. It's super fun. But they will like, they made, I don't know what I was expecting. They kept telling us it's a haunted house, like it's a drive-through haunted house in the woods.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like I was expecting like, a couple people like hidden behind trees being like,
Mhm.
bah! It was the coolest thing I've ever been through. Like they had decorated this trail. I mean, literally like glow in the dark orbs, like hanging from the trees everywhere, full vignettes. In like every time you turned a different quarter, there was a whole scene set up. I mean, it was wild and so freaking cool. It's the only time I've ever enjoyed a haunted house. And it was scary, but like there's that layer of separation because we were in our Jeep.
I know. I was gonna say, I'm like, if I was in a car, I think I'd be okay.
I will say we had our top and doors off, so like
Okay,
they could
they
like
could
get really
grab. Yeah.
close to us. But there, something about us being in a vehicle and them being on foot, I was like, we're safe. It helped me trick my brain enough to really enjoy the experience. So that was really, really cool. If you get the opportunity, I know some places are like actually shifting to this now. Now that the pandemic has happened, like drive-through haunted houses are becoming
Mhm.
more of a thing. And if you have the opportunity to go to one of those, I would really highly recommend it, because especially if you're a scaredy cat like us, it's really a fun way to get to enjoy it, but also like feel the fake safety of your vehicle.
So some security there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you have any other haunted house stories to share, or should we say goodbye for today?
Oh yeah, no, that's all, folks.
Yep. Thanks so much for joining us for a whole new year of Ghouls Night In. We're excited to keep bringing you all of the best spooky stuff. And if you would like to keep in touch, you can follow our podcast on Instagram at Ghouls Night In Pod. And please do leave a rating and a review on your podcast app of choice. It definitely helps us out. If you are looking to find me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And you can find me across all platforms at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.